Good morning all of you. In earlier class we discussed up to embryonic development, and today's class we are going to discuss about parturition and lactation. So embryonic development of the fetus, the period of embryonic development is called gestation period. After the completion of gestation period, the fully developed fetus, the fetus completely developed after 9 months and it is ready for delivery. So what is meant by parturition? Parturition, the delivery of the baby is called parturition. Earlier we discussed in reproductive events, parturition is one of the reproductive event. So after completion of gestation period, the fully developed fetus is going to be delivery of the baby is called parturition. So what is the definition of parturition? In today's class we are going to discuss about parturition, the definition of parturition, and how the process of parturition takes place, and after the parturition the lactation period. So what is the definition of parturition? So vigorous contraction of the uterus at the end of pregnancy causes expulsion delivery of the fetus. This process of delivery of the fetus, childbirth, is called parturition. So the definition of the parturition: vigorous contraction of the uterus at the end of pregnancy causes expulsion delivery of the fetus. This process of delivery of the fetus, a childbirth, is called parturition. So parturition occurs when the parturition takes place after the completion of gestation period. By which process? Vigorous contraction of the uterus. So we already discussed earlier classes, we discussed the structure of the uterus. Uterus consists with epimetrium, myometrium, endometrium walls. So myometrium, the middle layer of the uterus, myometrium, exhibits strong contractions at the time of the parturition for delivery of the baby at the time of parturition, right? So vigorous contraction of the uterus at the end of pregnancy causes expulsion delivery of the fetus. Expulsion, the baby eject, the baby comes outside, the delivery of the fetus. This process, delivery of the fetus, a childbirth, is called parturition. Up to this clear? Right. So parturition is induced by neuroendocrine mechanism. So how uterus walls are going to be contraction? So uterus, myometrium walls of the uterus is going to be contraction under the control of neuroendocrine mechanism. Neural control, endocrine by the hormones, neuroendocrine mechanism. So the complete parturition is induced by, the process of parturition is induced by neuroendocrine mechanism. After this clear? Right. So how the neuroendocrine mechanism takes place, how the process of parturition occurs. So first what happens? So first the signals for parturition originate from the fully developed fetus and the placenta, which induced mild uterine contraction. So whenever after completion of the gestation period, the fully developed fetus completely developed, and placenta originates signals. So those signals induce mild uterine contractions. So the signals for parturition originate from the fully developed fetus and the placenta, which induce mild uterine contractions. This process is called fetal ejection reflex. So what is the definition of fetal ejection reflex? What is meant by fetal ejection reflex? The signals for parturition originates from fully developed fetus and the placenta, which induce mild uterine contractions. The process is called as fetal ejection reflex. So after completion of gestation period, the signals are going to be induced by fully developed fetus and placenta, which induce mild uterine contractions, right? So this fetal ejection reflex process triggers the release of oxytocin from the maternal pituitary. So uterus is going to be contracted. The mild uterine contraction takes place by the fetal ejection reflex. It triggers the release of oxytocin, from maternal pituitary. So mother pituitary gland, we discussed already earlier regarding about the structure of pituitary gland and pituitary hormones. So oxytocin is one of the hormone which is releases from the pituitary, and pituitary gland releases oxytocin for what purpose? For the purpose of parturition. So oxytocin releases from the mother's pituitary gland after when? After which process? After fetal ejection process. By the fetal ejection process triggers releasing of oxytocin from the maternal pituitary. After this clear? Right. So what is the function of oxytocin? Earlier we discussed the function of oxytocin, which is helpful for myometrium contraction in the uterus for the purpose of parturition. Right. Oxytocin act as on the uterine muscle and causes stronger uterine contractions, which is simultaneous further secretion of oxytocin. So what is the function of oxytocin? Oxytocin acts on the uterine muscle and causes stronger uterine contractions. So first mild uterine contraction before releasing of oxytocin. So after releasing of oxytocin, act as uterine muscle for stronger uterine contractions, which stimulating further secretion of oxytocin. When stronger uterine contraction takes place, then oxytocin secretion takes place more. There is more secretion of oxytocin takes place. That you need to remember, right? And next one, the stimulatory reflex between the uterine contraction and oxytocin secretions continues, resulting in stronger and stronger contraction. So here what happens? First mild uterine contraction by the fetal ejection reflex, and once after mild uterine contraction oxytocin is released. Once oxytocin is released, oxytocin act as uterine muscles, causes stronger uterine contractions. Then the stimulatory reflex between the uterine contraction and oxytocin secretion continues, resulting in stronger and stronger contractions. So there is more contractions or takes place, stronger contractions or takes place in the uterus by the secretion of oxytocin. So this leads to the expulsion of the baby out of the uterus through the birth canal. This is called parturition. So stronger and stronger contractions of the uterus. In the region of the uterus, the contractions takes place more. In the region of uterus, what is there? Fully developed fetus is there. So the stronger contraction leads to expulsion of the baby out of the uterus through the birth canal. So what is birth canal? Earlier we discussed. That is cervical canal plus vagina. So through cervical canal and vagina, the baby comes outside. The baby expulsion outside, eject outside through the vagina. So this process is called parturition. So last point, after infant delivery, infant means newly born baby. After infant delivered, placenta is also expelled out of the uterus. So first baby delivery takes place. After the baby delivery, placenta with umbilical cord also going to be expelled out of the uterus. First baby delivery, after that there is placenta delivery also takes place. After this clear, right? Once again I am repeating here. So parturition, in simple words, the parturition means delivery of the baby. So when delivery of the baby takes place, so before completion of gestation period, during gestation period, or after gestation period. In normal healthy people, healthy female,